I'm Bob and I like to make stuff. Today we're gonna make custom car badges with a secret. Not too long ago, we traded in our minivan for another big vehicle that could hold our entire family, and my wife only had one request. It needed to be black, with black wheels, black windows, and as much black as possible so it looked like a secret agent vehicle. And that got me thinking that we'd actually take it a step further. Our family loves Marvel movies, and so if we added some shield emblems to the side of the vehicle, it would look like it was straight out of the Marvel universe. And then that got me thinking that we could actually make it even cooler by hiding a Hydra logo within the shield logo. I don't want to spoil the whole Hydra shield thing for you, just go watch the movies or read the comics, but basically Hydra are the bad guys and they infiltrated shield, and so I want to make a logo for shield with a hidden Hydra logo in it like this. Now this is not CG, this is actually done with light, and I'll show you how we're going to do it in just a second. This is all built around starting with a flat badge with the shield logo. So I found an SVG file online for free and imported it into Fusion 360 so we could extrude it into a 3D object. Now we took that STL file from there and we're going to print it on the SLA printer, so it's really high definition. And then we also took the SVG file to the Glowforge software and cut it out on a laser. There's a bunch of different ways you could cut this out. In fact, if you wanted to, you could just print it out on a piece of paper and use that as the base. But we're going to start with a 3D medallion because I think it's going to look a lot better. Alexa, push the button.
Sure thing, Bob.
I want this to be kind of a rounded badge like you would find on a normal vehicle with the brand name of the car on the back. And so it needs to have a rounded top. We found this light bulb, this is actually a Hue bulb from Philips, and it has a really good radius along the top with kind of a flat surface, and I think this will work out really well. So what we need to do is make a silicone mold of this shape, and then we can put all of the stuff we're making on the inside of it. Using it for this purpose is not gonna harm the bulb, which is kind of expensive, in any way. So we're gonna mount this down inside this cup. I want it off the bottom, and so we're going to use a clamp to kind of hold it above the bottom surface of the cup. So now we're just going to pour this in. We've got the bubbles pulled out of it. So I'm going to try to pour a thin little line down into it so we don't introduce new bubbles. And I also don't want to get the silicone too far up on the end of the bulb because we only really need the very bottom face of it and a little bit of the curvature. We cut out a few different ones on the laser, and we got these out of clear acrylic, which look really cool, but they're not going to work great on a black vehicle. We have this one out of black, so we're going to start with this and then go over it to make it look kind of pewter with some rub and buff. This worked out okay. But putting the wax coating, the rub and buff, on top of this made really inconsistent coverage between the glossy surface on the outside and the etched surface on the inside with the laser. So this was a good step, so we'll move on to the next iteration and see how that turns out. We cut some more of these on the laser, and actually we didn't cut them out, we scored the design. So there's just the outline around the eagle and around the details. We pulled off the covering on this section, so we're going to spray these matte black. So we'll have a combination of matte and gloss on these. And then on these, we're actually going to take the pewter rub and buff and push it down into this outline that's currently uncovered. Then when we peel this off, we should have just the outline around the design on a fully black surface. So So we've got a few options here. I wanted to show you kind of the different things we tried and what I'm deciding to go with. This one has some model paint that's down in the scoring that we did, and then we peeled off the masking. It's a little messy, not so great. This one's the same effect, but with rub and buff. This turned out pretty well, but you lose a little bit of the detail on the small stuff. This one has an overspray of silver, and then we pulled off the masking. That turned out pretty good. This is rub and buff over top of the whole thing. I think with a little work, you could probably get this even enough, but it's kind of hard to control. This one is just acrylic on the laser with no other effort onto it, and I'm not really happy with that. But this one, this is it. We got glossy black with flat black overspray, and then we peeled off the mask. We've got a couple of these, so we're gonna give that a shot. I'm using the grid on this table here to try to get this whole thing square, because I can't really see this design once I lay this on top of it. So I'm just gonna get this one square to the lines, and then lay the decal also square to the lines as best as I can, and just press them together. It looks like it lined up pretty well. So now we're gonna color in this section of the Hydra logo with this invisible ink pen. This is basically some sort of an ink that reacts with UV light. Just like always, we'll have all the tools and supplies and everything we used linked down in the description. This video is sponsored by I Like to Make Stuff. As a company, we create all sorts of content, and you may not know about all of it, but if you go to iliketomakestuff.com, you can find everything that we do. We've got a whole section of podcasts like No Instructions that I host with Josh. We've got an online store with t-shirts and hats, the book that I wrote, digital plans, and a bunch of other stuff. We've also got in-depth articles about each one of the projects with a list of all the tools and materials that we used. The website is really a resource for you to get more information about what we do. So be sure to go check it out, iliketomakestuff.com. We got these out of the pressure pot, and I want to pull them out of the mold in just a second, but I wanted to show you this one because this is one of the tests we did by just pouring epoxy on top of the piece that was sitting on like a spacer. I didn't think about making this level at the time because it was kind of extra epoxy, and you can actually see that the shape of it shows that it wasn't level. It pulled up on one side. So if we do this again, we have to make sure that it's setting on a level surface before we do that pour. So let's pull these other ones out of the mold and see how they look. We might be able to polish that one up, but you really just can't see the logo. There's not enough contrast in it on that one. Same kind of thing on this one. Like you might be able to see it, maybe with light behind it. So I think what we're gonna do on the next one is take this. This was a gray primer sprayed on top of a black acrylic. We'll try to do the pour on top of this and see if that is a good amount of contrast. So you can't really see the logo, the Shield logo anymore, but it does still work with the infrared. It's just kind of smudgy and looks even crazier than it did before. Yeah, and it's blue. It's not red ink anymore, which is weird. We've got these all prepared, and we're actually gonna put them on the floor. We tested several surfaces in the shop and found that this particular spot on the floor is the most level place we have. So we're gonna use this and just pour the epoxy on top of them. It's the next day, the epoxy is all cured up and these turned out awesome. The only thing is there's some drips on the back side, but luckily because of this paper backing on the back of the acrylic, you can get rid of that really easily. Let me show you. Now I'm going to cover the back of these with VHB tape. It's a double-sided tape that's really good for outdoor stuff, and it won't mess up the paint on the car. This is actually the same type of tape that are on GoPro mounts and things like that, so it's really good in a lot of different situations. It's very sticky, but you can also get it off if you need to remove it for any reason. All right, let's go put them on the car. So the way this actually works is the ink that we put on with the logos is UV ink, and it reacts to UV LEDs or UV light. In fact, some of the sunshine actually shows it just a little bit because there's UV rays. But we're going to use one of these flashlights that's all UV LEDs, and that's what triggers it. So if we go down here, see the normal logo, and then we shine the flashlight across it, and you can see the Hydra logo. So obviously you're not going to carry around a UV flashlight all the time, but it's supposed to be secret, right? You're not really supposed to see it unless you know that it's there. Really, this is just an experiment about using UV light to hide an image within another image. I'm really happy with where that one is. Now I've got a couple more I want to put on other parts of the car. I got this one put on. I'm really happy with how they look on the vehicle. This whole project was really about experimentation. We tried using a laser and 3D printer. Turns out you don't need any of those. You just need an image and some epoxy. The real key here is the UV ink, and that's something you could use in tons of projects for tons of really cool uses. If it gave you some ideas for projects, I would love to hear about it down in the comments. We've also got tons of other types of projects that you may want to check out, and if you're not subscribed, be sure to do that as well. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. And it turns out that
Action.
Oh, I was thinking about that. I haven't thought of what I was going to say. Done.